Ah,
So
finally.
we're going to ask a few questions. Yes, yeah. So I've got Luke Richardson with me.
Hmm.
We're going to do a few questions that I've written down. Um, and we'll start off with what is your favourite game?
So it's kind of hard to pick a particular game that I would say
A lot of different, you like a lot of different.
yes, but if I had to pick one, I suppose um, the game that had the biggest impact on sort of my gaming life would have been Halo Combat Evolved.
Halo, yes, you've said that, yeah.
The reason I say Halo Combat Evolved is because when I first got an Xbox, so prior to getting an Xbox in 2004, I'd only really played video games at friends' places and occasionally just some, like niche games on a computer. So that was the first console I got was the Xbox, the original Xbox in 2004 for Christmas,
Right.
and it came with two
So
games.
Halo's a big game for you.
Oh yeah, yeah, it came with two games: Top Spin 2 and Halo Combat Evolved, and um, I love
Is
playing
that
Halo
is
Combat
that the
Evolved.
latest Halo?
No, that was the first Halo ever made.
The first one,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. So the second question I'm gonna come at you with is: Do you still are you still hungry for challenges in gaming, or are you feeling like you're full now and you've done most of the
Always. I'm always ready for new challenges in gaming.
new challenges? Okay.
Yeah, provided they're in a game that I like to play and that's enjoyable. And I feel as though the challenge is interesting and rewarding. Then yes,
Yeah.
I'm always up for a challenge in gaming.
Okay. So you don't feel as though you're of all the games you've played that you're full.
No. So in the franchises that I like, um, provided they haven't experienced franchise fatigue or have gotten kind of old and started jumping the shark, and they make new and interesting installments, I'm
Yeah.
always ready to play the next game and to confront and complete any challenges that they may have come with them, whether it be completing the campaign on the highest difficulty or achieving whatever niche challenges they put in those games. I'm always ready to take on
I'm
challenges.
the same. I'm always embracing a new challenge, in whatever game that I'm thinking of in my head, you know, kind of different. I like a lot of different games, and because, even I like driving games, I'm getting interested in now. Little by little. Um, Gran Turismo, the new movie came out, right?
Hmm.
You know, so and I've always liked Forza, which is an Xbox game, which is a bit strange for me because I don't play Xbox, but
So have you
I
played?
like
How
Forza.
have you played Forza then?
Well, I've played it at friends' houses and stuff like that in the past.
Yeah, we have a few.
But anyway,
We have a few Forza games. My brother, whose gamer tag is
yeah, he's
Tombfiller.
Patrick. Okay.
Yeah. He's a big fan of. He's a big fan of Forza. He has Forza 6 and Forza Horizon 2, and I think a few, maybe one or two other Forza games as well. I know those are old now, but yeah, he was into Forza because he's a big car guy. So yeah, he's into Forza.
Okay, I get it. So we've had, you know, lots of games on Call of Duty, another
Oh
game
yeah.
that you like.
Hmm.
Lots of top five situations.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, Mostly you winning the game at the end of the games, but being other players being in support of that. So the last question is why why do you like Halo as a game? That's the last question. So take your time.
So when you say Halo, do you mean the franchise broadly or specifically Halo Combat Evolved?
The That's a good question. I would say just Halo in general. Halo in
Well, what do I like about Halo? Um, so I would like to split this answer up into two things. So you have the
general.
campaign of Halo, the
Yeah,
single player.
yeah,
Well, it's not just single player, you can play cooperative play. And then there's the multiplayer aspect. So when I first got into Halo, I only played the campaign really. I didn't play much multiplayer for two reasons. One is that uh, Xbox Live was not supported in the original Halo Combat Evolved. That wasn't until Halo 2 that Xbox Live, so online play on Xbox sort of came along. You could hypothetically play with up to 16 people in using system link play and doing like a LAN type situation, but I never really got to do that. So for the first few years of me playing Halo, it was mainly the single player, and the reason I like that is because it had a very escapist type of story. It's set in the future. It's set 500 years in the future. It's set in space, like in space colonies. It has interesting characters. The character you play, the Master Chief, is an iconic video game character. And in the first few games of Halo, he never talks outside of cutscenes. So in game, he doesn't talk. So he's like almost like a vessel that the gamer can kind of impart their personality onto during gameplay. And there's other iconic characters like Cortana, who's like an AI assistant that helps the Master Chief. The the narrative is very unique and enthralling. So there's multiple different factions. You have the human race, which is the UNSC, and kind of like a united coalition of all of Earth's people as one unit. Who have colonized the planets, but they're fighting against a coalition of aliens called the Covenant, and they're losing. And in Halo Combat Evolved at the start, you're already like fighting this losing battle, so you're kind of always on the back foot. But then you crash land on this ancient alien world, which is a ring, which is Halo, and it's also got a fantastic soundtrack. And it's got really deep lore. The game itself has lore that extends far outside of what you would immediately see while playing. And the gameplay itself is incredibly fun. There's many different types of enemies. It's very satisfying. You could go and play Combat Evolved right now and be very satisfied while playing.
Get out of here before it's too late.
So for all those reasons, that's why I sort of fell in love with Halo initially. I should say though, it was, however, the only first-person shooter I had at the time. So that played a big fact as well. That played a big part as well. But even in hindsight, I would say that it's a very, very good game. And you just have to look at the reviews of Halo Combat Evolved when it came out to see.
Everyone loves Halo.
Yeah.
Generally.
So that's sort of what started it. And then I kept getting the sequels because I wanted to know what happened next in the story. And so I got Halo 2. And Halo 2 ended on a cliffhanger. And I was like, oh, what's going to happen next? So I got Halo 3. And so forth. And then even after Halo 3, Halo 4, I was like, oh, what happens next? Because there's a sort of a teaser at the end of Halo 3 if you complete it on Legendary as well.
I thought that it was not really like that good. But that's because I'm on PlayStation 4. And I've never played it before. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how a person would feel if they kind of came into Halo and played it now having never played it, because most people play it probably for the multiplayer, I would say, at this point in time. Which brings me to the other part of Halo. The multiplayer is very satisfying. So for the audience out there, if you've played Call of Duty or some other shooters, the time to kill in regular multiplayer is quite fast. A couple of bullets, the guy's dead. In Halo, because you play as a super soldier, you take a lot more bullets. So kills are much harder to obtain. They take longer to sort of accumulate. And so it's more satisfying when you get a kill in Halo, in my opinion, versus Call of Duty. And so it's the engagements in Halo, generally speaking, I would say, are more fun and require more skill and are more rewarding than most other shooters I've played.
So you have a liking towards it.
It's more satisfying to win a game of Halo for whatever reason, because your opponents and yourself take more damage. So it's not as easy. It's not like if you get up behind someone and shoot them, you can just kill them, and because you happen to be behind them, you kind of have to maneuver while shooting and jump and use grenades properly, pick the right weapon for the right situation. And I think in that sense, Halo rewards skill and creativity in engagements, in both multiplayer and in campaign as well, actually. So that's the other reason why I like Halo, is because the multiplayer is quite fun. Even both the campaigns and the multiplayer are both things I enjoy.
Like when you said, "Oh yeah, it started when I played Halo," and you said that to me before. Like, I didn't realize it was. I knew it was a great game, and I knew everyone loved it, but I never knew that it was such a big. Until I knew that it was this exclusive, it was such a massive success.
Well, the first three Halo games, Halo Combat Evolved 2 and 3, are all held in a quite high regard by critics and the community. In fact, if you check, so I think some of the things that were said about Halo Combat Evolved is stuff like it revolutionized the FPS genre. It modernized it, and since many subtle innovations have been borrowed by other franchises, and that includes Call of Duty as well. So some things that Halo did that were kind of unusual for things that Halo did that hadn't been done up until that point were things like you could melee without having to switch your weapon. You could throw a grenade without having to switch to a grenade. Because before that, if you would play a game and you wanted to like stab someone or whatever, you'd have to take out a knife. And if you wanted to throw a grenade, you'd have to take out a grenade. Whereas in Halo, that happens like that because there's a dedicated button to do that action. And of course, almost all FPSs now, or most FPSs, arcade arena shooters, have that kind of a system. So there were subtle things it did that changed the mechanics of FPS games. That started with Halo Combat Evolved.
Because I think that when I was thinking about this, that it's got such a good system, like you were saying, narrative, gameplay, graphics, all that stuff,
and the soundtrack as well. It has a really.
soundtrack.
I mean, I'm not an expert on on sort of games prior to Halo and kind of the history of all the games, but when you think about video game music from the 90s, it's normally something that's very digitized and kind of compacted, where it sounds like, you know, like or you know, that kind of jazz. However, Halo soundtrack starts when you first load into the game. It's a Gregorian chant. I don't know if you've heard Halo soundtrack, particularly Combat Evolved soundtrack, but it starts off with a choir, you know, going oh. And it has like African music, and it has a really unique mix of music. And Marty O'Donnell's the composer, and it's just got great scores. You know, the whole campaign has got great scores in every mission, and that's true of 2 and Halo 3 as well. And yeah, so it's a complete package with in terms of it's hitting all the
notes.
Yeah. If you'll pardon the pun.
I think because most PlayStation games, while I love them, you know, I've played Gran Turismo, I've played whatever, doesn't matter what it is, Spider-Man. All the Sony exclusives have always been good games,
right?
In my opinion. But I don't think that they have the same system as Xbox exclusives, like Halo. Because, you know, Halo is such a great game. You know, PS4 has great exclusives as well, but Halo is such a level above.
you don't think that the exclusives for PlayStation had the ability to draw in people to that particular console as Halo did? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, that seems to be what
Because-
the consensus was when it launched. People were, I think one of the reviews specifically says it's worth getting an Xbox just to play Halo, is what one of the
There you go.
reviews said.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean. That's what I mean. So, as great as PlayStation is, and that is my world that I live in. Like, every day I live in that world, and no one can cross that because it's just what I've grown up. I've always had a PlayStation. But Halo is just that level above. And I also think that its system, like you were saying, like, story, gameplay, every soundtrack, combining those things elevates Halo.
Great voice actors as well. The voice actor for Master Chief has an iconic voice. Steve Downs, the guy's name is. Before that, he was a radio jockey, and he just got the job, and he just became the iconic voice of the Master Chief. And but yeah, there's so many iconic characters in Halo as well. You got Sergeant Johnson, as I mentioned, Cortana, Captain Keyes, the Monitor, etc., etc. Yeah, it's great, but it's not without its criticisms. So there is a few criticisms aimed at Combat Evolved, which are possibly due to scheduling issues, because I think they were always pressed for time when developing the first 3 Halo games, I think. One criticism is they do reuse several of the levels. So what happens is you'll go somewhere on the Halo ring, in one level, go elsewhere, and then come back to that same area. So in essence, you might do the same level, but in reverse. Like, you go back there, but you go back through it again the other direction.
That's tough.
And another criticism is that some of the levels have a lot of hallways. You go through a lot of corridors that look very similar. In particular, one level that's notorious for this, and that's the library. And the funny thing is, I watched a clip of a Halo speedrunner, Garish Goblin, who regularly speedruns Halo Combat Evolved on Legendary. And there was one where the developers of Halo Combat Evolved reacted to his speedrun, which is quite hilarious because he basically breaks the game to cut down the time. Like, he phases through walls and does these weird glitches and stuff. But even they, watching the library, were like, I think we went too far with this mission. Like, why did we put so many corridors in this mission, and so many levels? Like, because you're in this area called the library on Halo Ring, and you have to go up a lift 4 times, and each time you go and you do a bunch of stuff up another level, and they go, why do we make 4 levels in this mission? And but that's really the only criticism that it has.
The thing with PlayStation is they're great games, but there's a lot of hocus pocus and like just mini games and like with Halo, they have a proper system. Other Xbox exclusive games, they have a good system, whereas PlayStation seems to have these mini game type games like Little Big Planet.
So like really small, like arcade type ones.
Stuff going on, mini games. Whereas Xbox games are just they're that level of slightly above. That's what I think.
I suppose. I mean, I'm not sure about. I can't think of many exclusives off the top of my head apart from the ones we mentioned, which are Halo and Forza. I'm sure there are some, but yeah, they're
great games. They're just not. They don't have the system that Xbox games have.
Right.
They just don't. But they're still good games, though. All right, so that's pretty much it. I don't really have any more questions, but thanks for coming on.
No problem. So this was.
it?
It was good. Yeah, it was good to kind of discuss a bit about.
Right, well, we might do it. We might do it again.
Well, you have Phil McCrevis on next, right?
Okay. All right. See you later.
All right. See ya.